All right, another 1v1. DahvPlays and I are going to be squaring off here. DahvPlays is on the Lizardmen, and I will be on the lovely High Elves, my favorite of all of the races. So before we jump into those Lizardmen, let's take a look at my High Elf army, because this one's not going to be moving at all. And really went with a pretty kind of standard build when it comes to the High Elves, especially when you're playing against Lizardmen. We've got 1, 2, 3 units of White Lions. White Lions in this matchup are very good. They trade very effectively into Saurus as well as Temple Guard. They're very inexpensive, around 800 points some odd, but they've got AP, and they're really great units all around, and they do have a lot of armor. If you take a look at them, they've got a nice 90 armor on them, so nothing to really sneeze at. Of course, they do have their martial prowess that is included into their profile. Currently, if they drop below 50% health, they do lose that benefit of the melee defense and melee attack that it does give them. Now, I've staggered this line here, thinking that we would probably be dealing with some Engine of the Gods action. We've got 2 units of Swordmasters of Hoeth with AP and anti-infantry. I'll be totally honest, I kind of regret taking these guys, just because when you take a look at them, they are really cool, they are really awesome, but I feel like the White Lions are more than enough, and the Swordmasters of Hoeth are just overkill. You're better off taking 1 unit of Phoenix Guard and perhaps more units of White Lions, more Spearmen, or even just some more Archers. So overall, I just wanted to take them because I love them. They're probably one of my favorite units in the High Elf roster, but if you are building a High Elf build against Lizardmen, not as compulsory. Now, in addition to that, we went with 3 total units of Lothern Sea Guard. I really like these guys because they do have their charge defense against large. They also have anti-large built into their actual spears that they're holding. They have a nice good 165 range. And that was really the name of the game here, is taking as much range as I could. So you can see we've got 2 more units of archers here, and then Sisters of Averlorn. Now, these guys are going to probably be the biggest boon in this lineup. I'm well aware that the new Lizardmen have access to so many different types of dinosaurs now, especially with the Red-Crested Skink and 10 and 1 both having access to Engine of the God and Ancient Stegodons as mount options. These are going to be the only access to a ranged AP fire that you've got outside of the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower. So they're almost an auto include when you're up against Lizardmen. In my opinion, I probably could have taken an extra one of the Sisters of Averlorn rather than the Swordmasters of Hoeth. But again, AP damage, missile, or I'm sorry, fire damage and magic damage coming screaming out of these girls, not guys, as well as pretty good, decent melee stats if they do get charged by any kind of skinks that are quite quick and nimble. Now, as far as Dav's army, we can see he's got some front runners of skink skirmishers, great little skirmish cav, or not skirmish cav, but skirmish abilities here. They have poison, which is really good, really helps to tie down Illyrian Reavers that are going to be kind of harassing this line, which I did not take. And in addition to that, we can see that he's got a lot of red-crested skinks, 1, 2, 3, 4 units of them. Five total units of them, and one of them being, boom, Cohort of Sotek. Now, these guys have a new ability called Refuse to Die, as you can see right here. Now, when you click this, it means that entities, so models, individual guys, will not die. They'll be reduced down to 1 health, but for 20 seconds, if this thing has got, 90 total units in it, they won't drop below 90 if you click this right when they jump into a charge or something of that sort. In addition to that, they are unbreakable. Psychology, they've got Frenzy as built into their kit as standard. So they're a pretty good, awesome option. And I think in this matchup, they're quite strong because they do bring AP damage to the fore at an affordable rate. So they're really going to be great to pop the majority of my armored front line. Now, in addition to that, we can see, the Thunderous One. Look at these eyes. Look at these, just, those are some eyes that have seen some shit. Now, the Thunderous One here is a Regiment Renowned version of the Ancient Stegodon. It has 140 whopping armor, it has AP, it's got anti-infantry, it's got an 898 missile damage coming out of this bad boy. It is in it to win it. Now, the big thing with it, though, is it's got its cool bombardment ability, Judgment of Uxmax, and the way that this works is, as it's in combat, it'll be able to drop thunderbolts upon me and recharge that as it stays in combat. So it's really advantageous here. You really want to get that thing up in the face of things. We have a nice amount of skink cohorts throughout the front. It looks like Dav went with a very heavy skink army here, and we're just, having some fun, going some fun thematics here. Because 10 and 1 is the ruler. Look at that. Look at that imposing Tablet of Doom. So 10 and 1 here has got a lot of abilities, and I'm going to actually pause for this one. He is on the Engine of the Gods. So we'll talk about some of the abilities that come innate with the Engine of the Gods, and some of the abilities that 10 and 1 has with him. He's got Flock of Doom and Transformation of Cadon on him. You can see he's also got Arcane Conduit as well as Stand Your Ground. There's those 2 abilities. Now, one of the abilities that comes built into the Engine of the Gods is Burning Alignment. Now, some people have compared this to Independence Day. or a number of other in-game things that kind of similar to anything that drops an orbital bombardment ray, more or less. Now, this thing does a crap ton of damage, especially to lightly armored infantry, or if you're just not paying attention, it can really just roast an infantry unit that is engaged. So you have to be pretty aware of when these things are going to drop. And if you've got 2 of them in your army, it's going to be a little hectic for your opponent to really, I guess, kind of counter. But at the same time, they are pretty predictable. They take a little warm-up time to get going, so you do have to be aware of that. Now, of course, Focus Instincts comes with 10 and 1, so he can stop rampaging. Now, there's 2, not abilities, but his 2 items here. The Blade of the Serpent's Tongue gives him an increase to charge bonuses, and it imbues poison damage. Now, be mindful of this, because it also does it in a 40-meter radius. So these units now have the benefit of the Blade of the Serpent's Tongue, so increase their charge bonus as well as imbuing them with some fire damage. So it's a pretty great ability, or I'm sorry, weapon there. In addition, he's got the Potent of Warding, which gives a 5% damage bubble around him, so it will mitigate some of that damage you're dealing with. This is very similar to a ward save. In addition to that, lastly, the Engine of the Gods has Arcane Configuration, which improves the power recharge rate. That's an Engine of the Gods thing, not 10 and 1 thing. So it's like an innate kind of passive arcane conduit that's always running, more or less. Now, I do believe that Frenzy is a bug right now. The Red Crested Skink Chieftain, while on an Ancient Segadon or Engine of the Gods, also has Frenzy, so I do not look for that in the release build. That might actually be wiped out by that time, but be mindful of that it is currently on this unit, and it stacks with the already immune to psychology that it has. So again, be mindful of that, guys, going into the launch. Let's get this game going. Get some fun stuff going. Already got our archers kind of choosing their targets, shooting down range. Unfortunately for me, I went to do the alt left click where you can spin and rotate your army, and I did it. It took me too long to actually get it going. So you can see my army is now running back to their places here to get a better line on this charging Lizardman horde. This is unfortunately going to force my army out into really bad engagements here on the right flank, but nothing we really can't counter here. We have plenty of archery to kind of jump into this and get shots onto these things. It does mean, though, that we will be sacrificing a unit of White Line of Trace pretty early in the game. Mr. Avalorn already getting some heavy shots here onto 10 and 1, just kind of breaking into him. You can see that there, just chunking his health down one after another. Now, with my... Oh, there it is. Just trying to scurry out of that ray before it jumps in. You can see it launching, and then boom, right down there. Just missing those archers there. But just chunks and chunks of damage jumping into this. Get the skin cohorts engaged with those white lions, which is not a very favorable engagement for me, because I want those things on more heavily armored infantry. Preferably probably even the red crested skinks. Now, crested skinks are jumping in here, trying to hit into these Swordmasters of Hoeth. A great charge here by DahvPlays. Earthblood dropping down on them. We have gone with 2 nobles. Now, I went with the nobles because they do have anti-large and AP here. We have a L'Oreal because she's like a guaranteed safety net. If you're having a bad game and you really just can't get a hold of things, she has so much healing she can bring to the table that it really allows you to just kind of have a little bit more mistakes than usual, and as I kind of get back into playing multiplayer, I need that as much as possible. But you can see here that, oh man, the Thunderous one just thunders his way right through that unit of Swordmasters of Hoeth. We have the Noble heading out over towards 10 and 1, who is quite low on health. He's below 50%. Notice one charging through, knocking those archers all over the place, doing a chunk of damage to them, bringing the spearmen from the very rear to help out with that. Starve Avalorn going over here to get some health onto this engaged pocket. Probably the best place for it, because this is where the majority of the engagements were. Both those units of nobles jumping onto 10 and 1. They're going to be able to do so much damage, but Transformation of Katon dropping a Feral Manticore here. Feral Manticore is a great way to get some good AP damage onto things. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he had AP and anti-large. Guess I'm full of shit. But you can see that Feral Manticore is going after those nobles here, trying to mitigate the damage that they can get onto the... onto 10 and 1, and Dav knows that if those nobles get onto him, they're going to kill him very quickly, and that'll take out a huge chunk of points that are invested. But slowing things down here, we can see Dav has used the Skirmishers to focus on the Sisters of Avalorn. He's pushed the Bastillodon Revivification Crystal onto that as well, trying to get that down as fast as possible. Again, he knows Dav is a very experienced multiplayer combatant, and if you haven't checked out his channel, he's got a lot of really great breakdowns on multiplayer gameplay, so I do highly recommend that. But he does know that those Sisters of Avalorn are probably the prime threat to both of these units. So he's trying to get up in the face of those things, shut down their firing ability as fast as possible, and at the same time screen out these nobles. The Dav is really kind of stretched to the limits here, using Revivification Pistol. Arcane Forging has dropped on 10-1 here. We're trying to just kind of pop that bubble as fast as possible. We've got the nobles on them, getting mucked up by those red-crested skinks. We'll be doing AP damage to these guys. Not anti-large, but nonetheless AP. And you can see one of these guys is really struggling. All of our units are pretty much engaged as far as archery goes. We've got one unit of archers. Didn't see these feral cold ones, unfortunately. Rip through this unit of white lions. 10-1 is pushing over here into this unit of King cohorts and Lothern Seaguard, with one noble charging in Ernst behind him. And the white lions of Trace and the red-crested skinks have locked up this noble right here, or at least kind of kept him locked up. Now the Feral Manticore has rampaged, so it's really won't be able to be controlled by Dav right now, so we can kind of use our Swordmasters to focus things. One big thing on my part, look at this pocket. I didn't do anything with this. I mean, we just barely were about to pop those skin cohorts, so if I had been a little bit more on my game with the micro of these, I could have pulled these into a better engagement, let them not just kind of sit there for so long. So be mindful of where all your units are when you are playing. Another transformation of Cadon popping up here right behind this Lothern Seaguard, bringing out another Feral Manticore into the fight. Archer's still trying to chunk out any damage we can at a 10-1, going all in on that leadership here. Both those nobles chasing after him. We've got an Earthblood that popped off right here onto the Swordmasters of Hoeth. And my mistake, I think that Earthblood probably would have been better used on one of these nobles. Nobles here trying to get a charge in here. One thing I'll slow this down real quick to talk about is that when you're attacking with a single entity against a single entity, you want to spam your charges as much as possible. You can see that I'm attempting to get him to path around or through this Feral Manticore. I'm trying to keep this noble on 10-1 because they will have a tendency to get involved in other fights that occupy their kind of space. So when you're in a single entity duel like this, you want to focus and make sure you get these things involved in combat. Right here, you can see me just not doing that. Not doing exactly what I said. Instead, just getting mulched up by a Feral Manticore. But it is a round robin beat the shit out of the nobles time, with both of the Thunderous One and 10-1 just crapping all over this guy. There is the Thunderous One's lightning ability ripping through some Lothern Seaguard, chunking damage out of them. Let's take a look at the rest of the battle here. Why ever press tab? No one ever does. You can see the Skink Skirmishers are just kind of picking off things as they kind of run away. Feral Manticore chasing things down. One of those nobles has been completely destroyed here, and the other Feral Manticore is chunking down that noble as well. So you can see that those nobles, or the Feral Manticores, are being used to great use to get rid of those destructive nobles that would otherwise do a ton of damage. Shooting this bad boy up. There it is. Coming right down and into my Lothern, I'm sorry, not my Lothern Seaguard, my Swordmasters of Hoeth and my White Lions, using Star of Avalon to try and counter that damage, but unfortunately, it's just a little too much too late. Those things have just, that entire alignment ability just roasted those guys, and they were at pretty much full health before that. And you can see that was pretty much the nail in the coffin for me. Majority of my units are pretty shattered and beat up at this point. I do have one unit of Swordmasters of Hoeth in good health, but the Thunderous One and 10-1 are both just uncontested as far as anti-large AP damage that can be focused on them. The backline of my archers has been very thoroughly compromised by a lot of skinks, a lot of skink skirmishers, the Feral Cold Ones also being able to kind of scavenge through stuff and pick things off as they kind of get into those harrying side flanking conflicts. Look at that Thunderous One just shitting lightning all over the place. Just alone. One woman, Alariel, against a horde of dinosaurs. Save me, Chris Pratt! Save me! She just can't hold the line. Look at her just getting bucked wildly by Stegodons. And there it is. A valiant defeat. A lot of mechanical mistakes on my part, right? Should have microed my right flank a little bit better. Initially, the very first thing, I think, and this is probably what really added to me losing the game, was not putting my army in the proper position to begin with. I had one unit of White Lions of Trace. I'm just going to assume it's these guys. That got caught out in a really poor engagement. They got focused down very quickly. They just weren't able to return much. As a whole, though, they didn't do bad. 102, 53, 91. But if we take a look at Dav's army, it's mainly skinks. We didn't deal with Saurus, which the White Lions would have thrived against. So these kills are a little bit, less valued. They're mostly against skink cohorts. And if you take a look at the this unit of red-crested skinks, 111 kills on it. It was just chopping through some of my more heavily priced units in a pretty good trade upward for Dav. Now, of course, the big thing for Dav's army is, of course, going to be the Thunderous One and the Mighty 10-1, just kind of ripping through things. We did get a lot of focus damage on the 10-1, but we just could not capitalize that with the Nobles. Another huge thing on my part was kind of microing those Nobles not as well and not keeping as many heals onto those Nobles. So as a result, they kind of got isolated, and you want to support the Nobles, even though they are ravaging through the kind of countryside, attacking the heavy targets, or if you put them on chariots, you're going through like a dwarf firing line and the such. You do want to make sure they stay supported with any kind of heals and Earthbloods. I didn't drop a single Earthblood on a single Noble the entire time, and you can see I paid for it. So as a whole, made a lot of mechanical mistakes in this, made a lot of build mistakes in this matchup, but at the same time, I had a lot of fun. I love Logan Seaguard. I love Swordmasters of Hoth, so it was enjoyable for me. And seeing Dav's all skink build work to really great effect was a lot of fun too. So as always, guys, if you haven't, go check out DahvPlays' channel. It focuses very heavily on multiplayer, and he has a lot of really great multiplayer breakdowns. I think he's doing a really cool podcast with Aerocrastic, kind of going about the competitive meta as it kind of blows out with the DLC. But as always, guys, thanks so much for watching here today. Have a good one, and take care.